So hello, and thank you, Sarah, for that great introduction. Just once again, my first name and my preferred name is Haley Wright, and I'm humbled and incredibly excited to be speaking with you folks today about an intersectional approach to design within the context of accessibility in real life, and hopefully to learn more about accessibility in the built environment. The title of this slide says Intersectionality. The image shown below the title is of Kimberly Crenshaw, an African-American scholar presenting at a TED Talk in 2016. Posted behind Crenshaw, there is a wall with mounted photographs of 9 high-profile police-involved deaths of African-Americans. The significance of this image, taken during Crenshaw's presentation, is the acknowledgement of patterns of recognition, understanding multiple forms of exclusions, and the urgency of intersectionality. Let me describe what intersectionality means. A Call to Courage, an open letter to Canadian urbanist by Jay Pitter, describes intersectionality as a theory and an analytical framework coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. It helps us understand how various aspects of our identities, such as race, class, and gender, overlap, creating interconnected forms of discrimination. This scholarship is increasingly applied to restorative justice, healthcare, and city building, as it enables professionals to mitigate systemic and spatial barriers. Mapping the Margins, an article published in 1991 by Crenshaw, responds to the early feminist movement's omission regarding the ways identities such as race, class, and disability create distinct challenges when overlapped with gender. Crenshaw uses the experiences of Black women to illustrate how using singular identity frameworks ignores differences within groups and forces people to marginalize parts of themselves within discourses that are shaped to respond to one or the other. To clarify, Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC women experience racism in ways not always the same as those experienced by BIPOC men, and sexism in ways not always parallel to experiences of white women. Dominant conceptions of anti-racism and feminism are limited, even on their own terms. The concept of political intersectionality highlights the fact that BIPOC women are situated within at least 2 equity-seeking groups that frequently pursue conflicting political agendas. In the context of accessibility in real life, be open to consider that BIPOC persons with disabilities experience ableism in ways not always parallel to experiences of white persons with disabilities. The title of this slide says Historical, Social, and Political Contexts. Below it says Intersections of Multiple Grounds of Identity. At the bottom left of the screen, there are 3 circles, one that says lived experiences, another that says isms, phobias, and biases, and a third that says barriers and privileges. In the middle of the screen, there is a graphic of multicolored lines that are arranged like an asterisk. At the tail end of each of those lines, it says different identity categories, including but not limited to ability, age, class, culture, education, ethnicity, gender expression, gender identity, language, nationality, race, and sexuality. Any one of these identity categories, but very likely several of them, may be present within an individual. Let me invite you to consider the following definitions. Now stay with me. Lived experiences are an important form of expertise, often underutilized in urban development processes. Individuals with lived experience of a place and/or social identity possess a deepened knowledge of neighborhood strengths, challenges, and opportunities. Lived experience experts are also the keepers of important place-based stories and rituals. When this form of knowledge is coupled with professional expertise and translated into design, programming, and policy decisions, community transformation processes are more harmonious and productive. Barriers are obstacles that can be architectural or structural, such as within the built environment, attitudinal, information, communication, systemic, and technological that impede access, participation, and inclusion. Privileges are a systemic hierarchy in which a group of people are at the top and the default norm. Isms are harmful beliefs, behaviors, or institutional practices by a group or person with power directed against specific groups, rationalized by an underlying belief that certain people are superior to others. For example, ableism, racism, sexism. Phobias are a learned dislike, aversion, or an extreme irrational fear or a hatred towards a group of people. It is expressed through beliefs and tactics that devalue and demean people. Biases are a cause to feel or show inclination of prejudice for or against someone or something. Also consider unconscious or implicit biases. Let me invite you to consider how multiple barriers, privileges, isms, phobias, and biases affect lived experiences and the intersection of multiple grounds of identity. For example, consider the lived experiences of a person who identifies as part of the BIPOC community, who may be a woman, a person with a cognitive disability, or who has neurodiversity, or as someone who identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex, asexual, two-spirited, or more. How are these lived experiences presented within design discourses or accessibility in the built environment, if at all? The title of this slide says an intersectional approach to design. Listed below the title are 3 key considerations. 1, practice active allyship. 2, challenge your comfort zone. And 3, create equitable processes and outcomes. I'll circle back to these in just a moment to describe these considerations further. But first, let me introduce my self-identities to contextualize my lenses in the present. I identify as a biracial, mixed Black and white, able-bodied, cisgender woman. I recognize the effects of multiple barriers, privileges, isms, phobias, and biases, and the systemic disadvantages and advantages that have shaped my lived experiences through the lens of my identities. Building on what I understand from Kimberly Crenshaw, Jay Pitter, and many other resources, the objective of an intersectional approach to design is to amplify and acknowledge woven narratives, understand and unravel the lived experiences from people with a range of perspectives to co-create spaces for all. Design discourses and accessibility in real life must consider the intersection of multiple identities, as well as the effects of multiple barriers, privileges, isms, phobias, and biases. Self or social identity categories should be positive frameworks in which social power works to include equity-seeking groups. Identity-based politics should be a source of strength, community, and intellectual development. I've reflected deeply on diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and the local and international response to the Black Lives Matter movement. In the context of accessibility in the built environment, how are design discourses responding to the Black Disabled Lives Matter movement? How are we recognizing the exclusion inflicted on BIPOC communities and the disability community? How are we creating space for diverse imagination and innovation? BIPOC communities and the disability community should benefit from feeling safe, seen, heard, and celebrated in the built environment, including the spaces that we live, work, create, and play in. Black Lives Matter, Black Disabled Lives Matter, intersectionality matters, representation matters. An intersectional approach to design has helped to clarify my practice by weaving together the worth of my own lived experiences with the importance of accessibility in the built environment. Default norms do not exist in accessibility in real life. The purpose of accessibility in the built environment is not only to design for white cisgendered males using manual wheelchairs. The purpose of accessibility in the built environment is designed for and with people with a range of perspectives, people with dimensions and intersections of identities to create spaces for all. The following key considerations summarize at this time what I understand as an intersectional approach to design. 1, practice active allyship. An active ally is someone who witnesses injustices and responds to it in any situation with actionable awareness. 2, challenge your comfort zone. The comfort zone is a behavioral space where your activities and behaviors fit a routine and pattern that minimizes stress and risk. Move outside of your comfort zone and into your learning and growth zones. Within the learning zone, we can begin to problem solve, unlearn old information, and learn new information. The growth zone is a new territory, but where you can set and act toward new goals and dreams. Be okay with having those uncomfortable conversations. 3, create equitable processes and outcomes. Consider historical, social, and political contexts. Consider inclusive design principles. Use another lens. Balance your bias. Consider the opposite. And again, embrace a growth mindset. Practice self-compassion and try to understand the lived experiences of your co-creators. You don't know what you don't know, so learn it all and also be willing to unlearn it all. Because better practices for accessibility do change over time. Always question, who are we designing for, as well as who are we designing compassionately with? I am committed to using an intersectional approach to design, actively including and learning from people with a range of perspectives, and educating others about the diversity of ways to co-create spaces for all. I am not a know-it-all in this space. I am a humble learner and co-creator who values curiosity, humility, integrity, responsibility, and wisdom. I hope that an intersectional approach to design can be a tool to help you clarify your own practices or a source of learning or unlearning about accessibility in the built environment. Thank you.